A new year of football is just around the corner, with week 1 kickoff being just a few short weeks away. But with a new beginning also means new question marks and all kinds of new doubts and critics all over your back. And oftentimes, answering said questions are so important as they can literally decide the outcome of your season. Here is my biggest question for all 32 NFL teams heading into 2024, today focusing on the NFC. Arizona Cardinals. Can the Kyler Murray to MHJ connection put this team back on track? 2023 was an interesting year for the Cardinals. They were expected to be awful and in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, but instead they ended up being a pretty scrappy, competitive, and quite frankly, fun team to watch. Now here in 2024, it seems like they could still be a pretty underrated team that could rack up some wins, but a lot of it is going to start with a healthy Kyler Murray throwing to one of the most exciting wide receiver prospects perhaps of all time in Marvin Harrison Jr. Them getting off to the right start and putting up like a 1,000 plus yard year is crucial to the Cardinals' success in what direction they decide to pivot towards in their future. This is the foundation year and they cannot afford to mess it up. Atlanta Falcons. Will Kirk Cousins unlock the potential of this offense and make you a playoff team? Pretty cut and dry here, right? The Falcons needed an upgrade at quarterback during the offseason. Their dreadful QB play kept them from winning their division and making the playoffs in 2023, so getting Kirk was a huge priority, and it definitely seems like a big W pickup, at least on paper. This Falcons team does have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and it felt like the offense in particular was being extremely limited. Bringing in a guy like Kirk could reawaken the skill of Kyle Pitts, get him in the end zone a lot, make Drake London become a solid wide receiver, and of course there's Bijan as well. However, there could of course be that drawback that Kirk Cousins isn't as good as he used to be, as he is in his mid-30s and coming off an ACL tear. So it's kind of up in the air on what happens. If they can keep Kirk healthy, this could be a very successful year for Atlanta. If not, this just might blow up in their face. The Carolina Panthers. How much can Bryce Young and the offense improve? The sophomore season of Bryce Young is going to be very crucial for the Panthers. Right now, a lot of people still think of this team as literally the worst team in all of football, and it's easy to see why. They didn't do that great during the offseason, and 2023 was just a train wreck. Their offense was painfully difficult to watch, with not a great run game, and Bryce Young having accuracy issues and running for his life the other half of the time. They've got to stabilize for this young kid so he can be productive, otherwise they're going to keep kicking themselves as they watch CJ Stroud, who got off the board 1 pick later, continue to dominate. This Panthers team needs to take just some kind of step in the right direction to justify where the rebuild is right now. Otherwise, it could be a very, very painful next handful of years for Panthers fans. The Chicago Bears. How quickly can the offense play up to its potential? The Bears just might be in one of the most exciting situations in recent NFL history. Yes, they have a number 1 overall pick at quarterback, a rookie. You never know how that's going to go, but he's coming into an offense that is literally set up to see him succeed right from day one. With 3 potential elite options at wide receiver, plus reliable running back help, this Bears team could have a crazy good offense if Caleb Williams can develop and figure out NFL defenses fast enough. Now, that said, as a rookie, that is a lot of pressure to have on your shoulders, but he definitely has the talent to make it happen, and I firmly believe that if he does play up to his potential, that it's kind of justified to say this Bears team has a chance of making the playoffs. If the offense is explosive and the defense keeps going on the right track like it has, this Bears team just might surprise some people. The Dallas Cowboys. Can this finally be the year? This is like the most Cowboys thing ever to say, and I'm not even a fan of this team. In fact, I hate them with every fiber of my being, but honestly, this is all they really have to prove at this point. They've been one of the most consistent franchises for over a decade when it comes to consistently getting 10 plus wins every single regular season, always looking good at that part of the year. But then once January hits, everything just changes, and they always find a way to choke, usually in the most embarrassing way possible. There's really no excuse at this point. With all the talent you have on your roster, it's actually pathetic that you haven't made an NFC championship literally in decades. And this really has to be a good year, as Dak Prescott's future as the starting quarterback is definitely on the line with his impending free agency. So if they don't win here, Cowboys fans may have to be prepared for some major changes. The Detroit Lions. Can the defense take the jump? A lot of people are very fixated on the offense, naturally so, but for me a lot of it starts with the defense. A lot of people think the Lions are a Super Bowl contender, which is very fair, but if they want to take that jump and be in talks with guys like the Ravens and Kansas City and whatnot, they've got to have a more productive defense as well. It can't always come down to those shootouts and choking leads like we saw in the NFC Championship game for those moments when the offense goes cold. They need to have a defense that can stand tall. And right now, I'm still not entirely convinced it can be that when they need them the most. We need to see more production on the pass rush outside of Aiden Hutchinson. The secondary's got to get a little bit better too. If they can, the Lions are literally right there. This seems like the one thing that could be holding them back from true greatness, which would obviously be really cool considering Detroit's long and very sad history. The Green Bay Packers. Does Jordan Love pick up from where he left off? Packers fans once again are very fortunate as they don't have to look very far or for very long to find what looks like their next franchise quarterback. Jordan Love seems like a seamless replacement for Aaron Rodgers. It started off kind of rough in 2023, but he really got it going after a while, looking like one of the better QBs in the league statistically. Not to mention that he won a playoff game in his first year as a starter and nearly got this team to the NFC Championship, which is very, very impressive. But of course, with the success that he found early on in his career, without that much pressure on him, the bar is going to be set much, much higher for him. The expectation is that he will be one of the best quarterbacks in all of the NFC, and if he fails to meet that, that could be crushing in terms of the Packers' progress. This Packers team has always been really good. It was just a question of Jordan Love before. Now that he's proven himself, there's no reason why they can't be competitive. They still have a lot of great pieces, and they're well coached as well. So this Green Bay Packers team is going to heavily rely on Jordan Love to lead them to the promised land. That is a lot of pressure on a young player that they've been looking towards for many, many years as the future. So hopefully he can handle it. The LA Rams. How does the defense maintain without Aaron Donald? The Rams have a lot to be proud of after what happened last year. It was a big-time bounce-back season after the disappointment of 2022. Offensively, the future is bright for those guys. However, we can't say the same defensively. They already weren't doing that great in 2023 to begin with, but now they're down arguably the greatest defensive tackle of all time in Aaron Donald. We're talking a guy whose mere presence is enough to make a quarterback miss a throw. Somebody who requires a lot of accountability in game planning, a matchup nightmare for an offensive coordinator. Without him, what is there to fear on this Rams defense? Where's the soul of this team going to come from? We didn't see that much production outside of Donald last year, so who's going to step up in his absence? Are they going to find a replacement, or are they absolutely screwed? I'm a bit concerned that we're going to see even more shootouts with this Rams team and all the other franchises. It's a rough situation to be in, especially when your window for competing for a title is going to close really soon, knowing Matt Stafford's age plus the injury history. The Rams need to find some new playmakers on defense really soon, or this season could be a bust. The Minnesota Vikings. Do you have enough at quarterback to compete right now? Now, at least right now, the surefire answer should be no. Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy leaves a lot to be desired. However, if JJ can develop quickly and he continues to look good like we've seen in camp sometimes, that would be great for this Minnesota team to maybe make a return to the playoffs surprisingly. It doesn't feel like they're that great because they lost Kirk Cousins, but the fact of the matter is this team does have talent on both sides of the football, and they're just missing a good quarterback to lead them. I mean, we saw them be competitive a lot of the time last year, even after the Kirk Cousins injury, with guys like Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins. If you find a consistent threat at QB to lead this team the right way, they might just be better than we think. Obviously, you're in it for the long run with JJ, you're trying to develop him, but all I'm saying is, all the pieces are there if things can go just a little bit ahead of schedule. The New Orleans Saints. Can you find a consistent pass rush? Obviously, the Saints have a lot of issues on hand. It feels like they're trying to win when they need to be prioritizing a rebuild more than anything else. But if this is the path you want to head down and you want to try and be competitive and win your division, the defense has to be a bit stronger like we saw in years prior. And a lot of that's going to start with your front seven. It's felt like the last couple of years that there just hasn't been a consistent pass rush for this Saints team. And last year might have been the worst of all, as they ranked bottom 5 in the NFL in total team sacks at a measly 34. The Saints haven't had a double-digit sack player since 2021 with Cam Jordan. Cam's up there in age now. You can't expect him to be a carry like that these days. He can still be a solid, versatile option for you on a team, but there's just no way he's going to get you 10 plus sacks in a year. So that means the rest of this team's going to have to step up. Whether it be a new individual or collective effort, 34 sacks is just not good enough for a team that's trying to win their division. It never will be. The New York Giants. Who's going to be your QB? Now, obviously, short term, the answer is Daniel Jones. But I'm more so looking at it from the long game. By the time this season ends, what are the Giants going to say? Is Daniel Jones their guy or not still? It's all going to depend on how he plays, because they have an out of his contract after this season ends. And if he sucks, you best believe with the type of money he's making that they're going to throw him right out the door and start anew, either through the draft or perhaps through free agency. Maybe Dak Prescott will be available? Danny Dimes has to ball out, despite having so much to prove as a player, despite the long and sad injury history, and the fact that the team around him really isn't that talented compared to the rest of the league. Add in an offensive line that still has questions to answer, and all I can really say is, good luck. The Philadelphia Eagles. Will the young secondary improve fast enough to get back into prime form? You gotta give a lot of credit to Philly in the front office, as usual. They always seem to do so great in the draft and with their offseason, and this is yet another prime example of it. The Eagles had a huge issue with pass coverage in 2023, amongst one of the worst in the NFL, and they went out there hard and got two young, impressive-looking cornerbacks added to their team. And if the talent can show and they get coached up fast enough, this Eagles team could be right back into the thick of it, competing in the NFC for a chance to represent that conference in the Super Bowl. They seriously are good enough from top to bottom, but you have to question whether or not these guys are ready to win right now. Yes, they are amongst some of the best corners you possibly could have drafted, but they're still rookies. Rookies have breakout seasons, but it's not always likely you're going to get two of them right off the bat that are just elite. That is tough to come by these days. They're going to have their fair share of mistakes, and you have to wonder if they can learn from them fast enough mid-season before the end of the year comes around, before January, when they could get seriously exposed for said weaknesses. The Eagles still have a lot of work ahead of them, and they gotta build up the confidence of those young players ASAP, otherwise they just might miss out on yet another golden opportunity. The San Francisco 49ers. Can you successfully maintain with a weaker defensive line? San Fran still have a lot of potential to be the best team without a doubt in the NFC, just knowing how loaded they are from top to bottom, and how Brock Purdy can realistically only get better from here. But the defensive line isn't so deep anymore compared to 1 year prior, as Chase Young left in free agency and Armstead as well, two guys that were pretty important contributors at points. Now Leonard Floyd, who they just recently signed in free agency, plus Javon Hargrave, who's been on the team for a year now, could prove to be excellent replacements when it comes to that pass rushing category, but you never know for certain how new guys are going to fit in and if it'll feel the same. Sometimes losing those veterans makes all the difference, and we'll have to see if the 49ers can handle it or not, as they had a lot of depth previously on that D-line, a lot of guys that could come in both off the bench and that were starting the whole game that could always just get to the quarterback or make a play. That's an advantage you don't want to give up, as it means that the rest of the NFC could inch ever so closer to you. The Seattle Seahawks. Can the O-line handle the pressure? This is a delicate situation for the Seahawks. They're definitely still talented enough to compete for a playoff spot in the NFC. However, Geno's starting to get up there in age, and he could just be one big hit away from being permanently sidelined and never playing for the Seahawks again. And that's a really big concern this year in particular, because that offensive line does not look too great, especially knowing that Damian Lewis and Evan Brown both walked in free agency. That's two of your more reliable starters gone right off the rip, and even with them starting last year, Seattle still gave up a total of 38 sacks. And just knowing the injury history at some of the current guys and how they have so much to prove, you're probably not feeling all that great about Seattle's chances of not only keeping Geno on his feet, but making it back to the playoffs. This O-line has to improve quickly so Geno can actually get the ball out and make use of the great playmakers on this team. It would be such a shame if this team misses the playoffs yet again, because it feels like they're right there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Will Baker pick up where he left off? I'll admit it, I'm seriously impressed with what I saw from Baker Mayfield in 2023. I doubted him a lot, and he showed that he still has something left in the tank. He showed why Cleveland drafted him #1 overall all those years ago with his best season to date. However, it's really important for Baker to show us that he can do this consistently. I understand there was a lot of baggage in Cleveland and he played through injuries, but you can't change the fact that he's never had 2 seriously solid seasons in a row in his career. We can only hope that he leaves behind all of the bad parts of his past and he can actually be consistent and be confident behind a team that truly believes in him and what he stands for. You've shown us you can still do it. You had your redemption arc. You've got good weapons around you. You're maybe more confident than you've ever been in your career. So go out there and continue to ball out, because God knows the Buccaneers are going to need that if they want to stay in this race. The competition's going to remember how he played last year, and they're gonna adjust, and a team like the Falcons are trying their best to edge them out by getting Kirk Cousins. This is going to be a really hard and telling season for him and the Buccaneers, and if they can get through it, that would be massive for their future. The Washington Commanders. Will this team be enough to put your new QB on the right track? A lot of credit is due to Washington for trying super hard to build a new identity over the offseason, starting with, of course, drafting who they're hoping to be their next franchise quarterback in Jayden Daniels, who I think could be a very, very good player if given the right resources, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of trying to give him said resources. They addressed a lot of areas of need and got a new head coach, which is great. I'm loving the fact that they increased the power of their running back room with Austin Eckler, a veteran that could help guide Jayden, plus Zach Ertz as well, a reliable tight end target who's been doing this for many, many years now and has played with a lot of quarterbacks. It seems like they're setting him up well to at least be somewhat successful and put his career in a good trajectory. But there might be some pressure that rides on this kid's shoulders, as you're giving him a lot of resources to perform well relatively early, get that development going quickly, and he's in a leadership position as well, which could lead to him trying to play hero ball at times and maybe forcing some things that he shouldn't, or perhaps going too hard on some of the things that he needs to adjust, like running out of the pocket too much. He could just be one hit away from serious disaster happening and him setting back his progression, so the Commanders have to play their cards right here. It seems like they're doing a lot of the right things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to execute. If you can just get some good numbers out of Jayden and he stays on the field, that'd be a great baseline. And there you go. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and what you're hoping all of these teams accomplish. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more weekly NFL content.